All right, everybody, welcome to the Abundance to Give podcast. Appreciate you coming on and spending a little bit of time with us.
Yeah, so I show people how to own and operate residential assisted living homes for seniors. It's an alternative to the big box style of assisted living we all know and have come to hate. It is a tough industry in general. Like, you are dealing with people's lives. It's not just a real estate play. So there's a lot of opportunity to do good and do well.
Are there a lot of the businesses that are being sold where you could just buy an existing one?
There's a lot of value add when you come in as more of a professional business owner and you say, hey, I see a bunch of things that we can do to elevate this home, to get higher rates, to make it better for the staff. So there's a lot of good deals out there to be had for sure. I mean, I don't know anyone in California paying less than $9,000 a month to stay in an assisted living home.
There's no insurance covering that?
Many don't. They are paying out of pocket.
Holy sh! All right, everybody, welcome to the Abundance to Give podcast. Today I have, is it Isabel or Isabella? How would you pronounce your first name?
Isabel. Yep.
Appreciate you coming on and spending a little bit of time with us today and telling us a little bit about what you do and, kind of like, so I saw with your email, it has Academy in it. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I show people how to own and operate residential assisted living homes for seniors. So it's
like where you have like 5 people in them type thing.
In California, where you are limited to 6 residents in a home, but depending on where you are in the country, it's usually somewhere between 6 and 16. So yeah, it's a residential home that houses seniors, and it's an alternative to the big box style of assisted living we all know and have come to hate.
Right. I'll play devil's advocate for a minute, and you could offset this by, I've heard both good and horror stories about the kind of single family environments, depending on who's operating them, right?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the good and the ugly in these operations of these assisted living facilities.
It is a tough industry in general. Like, you are dealing with people's lives. It's not just a real estate play. So there's a lot of opportunity to do good and do well, but it does 100% come down to quality staffing. So the way we teach and the way we personally do ourselves is more hands off, where we're hiring that staff and they're running all the day to day, and we're just owning and operating the real estate in the business. So staffing is even more vital if you're going to become hands off, because you're not there to control what's happening every single day. So 80% of this industry is currently run mom and pop, meaning the people live in the home, they work in the home, they do it all themselves. That's not what we do, right? We run it like a real estate investment, where you're hiring that property manager and they're running all the day to day. That's exactly what we do, and show people how to do. So there are pros and cons to this, but it is definitely better than a big box situation, right? Where you have 30 seniors to 1 caregiver in the smaller homes, right? For you in California with 6 residents, you'd have 2 caregivers on during the day. So a 3-to-1 ratio. So for the senior, the quality of care should be vastly better in a smaller assisted living versus a big box.
Yeah. So, I mean, like Sunrise, right? You see all the different, all the ones out there. Yeah. So is that, like you said, that is a 30-to-1 on average? And what types of things do they handle and not handle, right? Because you get to certain stages where you have, Alzheimer's, dementia, other things, right? So how do you differentiate the two versus just a normal giving environment?
Well, there's a couple stages of assisted living. So there's independent living, think Golden Girls, right? You don't need a ton of help. You're there for the pickleball court and the Zumba and the interaction. You can't really live alone. You need a little help, but you can still enjoy. That's independent living. So you could do that residentially or commercially. We're focused on.
Would that be in a facility like this or no?
You could do it. That's not what we do, but you could. That's kind of the first tier of senior housing. The next tier is what we focus on, which is assisted living. So when you move into assisted living, you need help with 3 to 5 ADLs, or activities of daily living. Anything you do from the moment you get up out of bed to the moment you go to bed at night. So you need help with bathing, toileting, walking, getting up out of chairs or beds, eating, right? Brushing your hair, brushing your teeth, taking medication. That is what we focus on, assisted living. And that you could do in the commercial or residential. Then you can get licensed for memory care. So you are having residents who are dealing with brain change and dementia, and you can get licensed for that in a residential home. It's an extra $1,500 more per month per resident. So it adds to your bottom line, but also you can serve seniors longer throughout their time and need and stay with you. And really the last phase is skilled nursing, which is where you need doctors, nurses, gurneys, IVs. That's medical. And that cannot happen at the residential level. That only can happen in commercial facilities just because of the tech and supplies that they need.
Right. Yeah. And I've seen those, the kind of the rehab centers and different things like that, where they're much more intensive, right? They're coming out of hospitals and into hospitals and all that stuff quite a bit.
Exactly. So we're focused on the middle level.
Yeah. So with that, let's say that I wanted to do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
How would I get started? What licensing do I need, and what general costs would it take me to get into this business industry?
So there's 4 ways to get started. The fastest would be to either lease a home to use for this. So someone else has fully renovated it, fully retrofitted it, it's ready to go. And then you're just going to apply to the state for that license. There's 3 licenses involved. One on the physical property. So they're checking for points of egress, fire suppression, wide enough hallways and doorways, things like that to make it senior safe.
Yep.
The second license is your licensed administrator. In real estate world, we call it the property manager, but in assisted living world, it's the licensed administrator. That is like a level of licensing that they get. It's not a nurse. It's not an RN. It's usually a CNA or home health aide, right? Who has this level of licensing through the state. They're running all your day to day. And they are hiring your caregivers who do the 24/7 care for the residents. So the home, the administrator, the caregivers have licenses. You as the owner operator don't have a license, right? But those are the licenses involved. So leasing would be the fastest way. That could happen within 3 months from today, finding that right property and getting the FF&E and setting up your carrying costs and hiring your staff, marketing and all that good stuff to open. You could also buy an existing care home. So you're purchasing someone else's existing business. That usually takes 3 to 6 months. If you're going to buy a single family home and convert it to become, that could take 6 to 12 months, depending on the conversion. And if you're going to buy land and custom build, that's 1 year to 3 years. So different timelines, different price points, but those are kind of from the fastest to the slowest ways to get in.
Are there a lot of the businesses that are being sold where you could just buy an existing one that's being improperly operated, maybe?
Interestingly enough, because like what I said earlier, 80% of the industry running it mom and pop, after about 7 years of working in it every single day, they say, okay, I've made enough money. I'm tired. I'm out. And so they're looking for someone to, offload this to. But this isn't just a business. It's not a transaction to them. This is like their baby, right? Many times, like this is the home they are living in. They're caring for these people. So there's a lot of value add when you come in as more of a professional business owner and you say, hey, I see a bunch of things that we can do to elevate this home, to get higher rates, to make it better for the staff, for the seniors, all of this stuff. So there's a lot of good deals out there to be had for sure.
Where does someone go to buy one of these? Is it like biz, buy, sell, or is there like another marketplace for this?
You will sometimes see them listed online, although I will say about majority of the homes that are publicly listed are bad deals. Because if you're listing,
it's no different than my industry in multifamily,
right?
When it made it to the website,
it's not good.
Good deal. Now, it's not to say it won't sell or can't. It just needs to be heavily negotiated.
Yes, yes. Because our reasoning that we say it's usually not a great deal is because if daughter Judy, the adult child of the senior living in the home, okay, if she is a realtor and she goes and sees that the home is for sale online, new ownership, she's like, oh my gosh, I don't want my mom to be with new owners. Like, well, this isn't what we signed up for. She takes her mom out of the home. Now your vacancy goes down. Now the business is worth nothing because the business, what you're buying is the real estate plus the business. And if there's no seniors, there's no business. So
Right.
the reason we suggest never publicly list, always off market private listings is the better way. You want to keep that vacancy high.
Correct. That makes
I'm
sense.
sorry, occupancy high.
Yeah, that makes sense. Very interesting. So if I were to open up a P&L statement from one of these business operations that was run decent, right?
Yeah.
Not amazing, not crap, decent. Walk me through kind of what's an average size? Was it 10 people? 10 bedrooms?
So in Arizona, I'm limited to 10. So I'll give you one of my very, very basic average homes. So I've got 10 residents, $5,500 each. So $55,000.
$55,000 a month.
$55,000 coming in every month. It costs me about $35,000 every month to run it, paying my staff for food, electricity, cable, all of
things.
All in. The mortgage is another 10. So $45K total expenses.
$10K split
to the bottom line cash flow for me.
Okay. Is there any additional income or additional revenue that from the 55 for just your baseline rent that comes into that play as well, like other income numbers?
Not really. Most of it's the residents living in the home. That's, really kind of how that pans out.
Okay. So you're at, what would be your cash investment into that business so we can start calculating some ROI?
Yeah. So I hate this. It feels very lawyer-ish, but it depends, right? Depending on those 4 methods, if you're leasing the home, you now don't own it. So you're doing
right.
Right. So now maybe you're doing a first, last security deposit, FF&E, carrying costs, depending on your location. You could be in as low as 100K, as high as maybe 300K, right? So it could be pretty low end. If you are buying land and custom building from the ground up, you could be in for 1 to 3 million. So it is literally such a range. But the most
buying an existing one. So let's say I was going to buy yours.
Okay.
What kind of multiple do these things operate off of?
So it's the cost of the real estate plus 2 to 5 times the EBITDA. Okay. So it's 2 separate transactions. So if mine is cash flowing 10 a month, right? If I am, selling, I want to sell it at 5 times. If you're buying, you want to buy it at 2 times. It's worth what someone's willing to pay based on a lot of factors, reputation and occupancy and all that good stuff. But it's the cost of the real estate, which hopefully has increased over, the 14 years I've owned it. And then that value of the business. So it can be costly, but if it's getting you in the game faster, it sometimes is worth it.
Well, yeah, and then maybe there's an option. I'm sure there's a hybrid model in that to where maybe we don't buy the real estate. Maybe now you get to be a landlord.
Yep.
But then we buy a business.
Yep, we have done that many a times over, and it is a great way to still be in the industry, serve seniors, and get great cash flow on both ends.
Yeah, or even on a more interesting creative way is if you're trying to avoid taxes.
Yeah.
But also benefit yourself to get a pop. I mean, let's say you sold the business for $1 million, hypothetically.
Yeah.
Do people finance these things or do they don't finance?
For the most part, how people are paying for this is SBA 7A or 504 loans.
Okay.
Or through syndications, raising private money. Most of our students do not use any of their own money, and we encourage that. Like, why use your own money?
You don't have any capital in?
We try now.
See, so this is where I find it a little bit of a crux because, we teach on the multifamily side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, if a syndicator comes to you and wants you to give them money for their investment deal, and they don't have any skin in the game.
Yeah.
I want you to turn around and I want you to run as fast as humanly possible because there's no way in hell as a syndicator myself that I, number one, would ever allow an investor to invest with me if I didn't have something. Not saying a lot, something in the game. Because typically a good syndicator brings in 10% of the capital required on average. And what that does is it gives, hey, if you believe in it and you put money in it, well, then here we go. Now, you can still get these little fees and stuff on top of that for putting the deals together, but they need to have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I'll never forget this. I had a buddy of mine, he did like a deal years ago. And I'm like, dude, how much money did you have to put in? He's like, I didn't put any in it. And I'm like, how much money did you raise? He's like, $600,000. I'm like, so let me get this straight. You got somebody or a bunch of people to give you $600,000 and you have zero in the deal? He's like, yeah, I couldn't believe it. I said, I can't either. I said, there's no way in hell that I never give you money because the third question I'm asking you is how much are you putting in yourself? Physically, like net of any fees you're getting. Because, but listen, some people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, and everyone has different risk tolerances, right? Some syndicators or investors would look at that and say, "Oh, I totally see the sweat equity that you're putting in, the investments you put in to learn this, to do all of this up front is worth that." So everyone has their different risk tolerance, but some of our students have done deals where they put money in, and others no. It's really a preference for them and what they're, able to do at that point in life and how well they're able to pitch themselves, to be honest.
So in terms of a IRR, however you want to calculate it on a cash on cash basis return, what are you typically seeing in these types of investments?
It's just tough to say because literally every single deal is completely different. I've seen,
right, but if you're netting $3,000 a month, right, net,
yes,
that's free cash flow.
Yeah,
and obviously you have cash flow plus any appreciation in businesses, and you put it all together, and that gets you an IRR. But from a cash on cash basis, I mean, obviously, if you had $100,000 in the deal, and you're getting essentially $120,000 a year, I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
But let's say you had $1 million in the deal, and you're getting $120,000 free cash flow. That's a 12% cash on cash.
Yep.
So
that's where we say it ranges because it's like
it's how much money you had to and you physically have in it or your investment pool. But I mean, give me a range. Because like in multifamily, I could tell you it's somewhere between 14 to 20% a year on your money.
Yeah, it is not clean and simple like multifamily because this is run like small businesses, right? And so every single deal is just very unique and very different. Some people are coming in, they're buying a 10-pack of these homes. Other people are starting onesie, twosie at a time. The 10K number is really a very, very average number right there. In states like, a New Jersey where you can have 16 residents, our students are cash flowing 40 a month on one home. So
is California really bad?
It's not bad. There's 4,000 of these homes, which means nothing because California is massive, right? But there's 4,000 of these homes all throughout the state. They are very popular. You've probably driven by 1,000 of them and never knew, they're super common. But being limited to 6 residents is not my favorite. That is very limiting versus
and the cost of the real estate is super high, and you add all that cost and maintenance and all
gets tough. Yeah. And the thing is in California, your cost to stay in the home. I mean, I don't know anyone in California paying less than $9,000 a month to stay in an assisted living home. So
and there's no insurance covering that.
So 10% of the population has long-term care insurance. So if someone has that, it can pay for their care needs, but many don't. They are paying out of pocket.
Holy
Yeah. And it's really their adult children who are footing the bill. It's either the senior is selling real estate that they have using that capital to pay for it. They're using cash, savings, IRA investments.
First mortgages, whatever they got to do. Yeah. Interesting.
Yep. Huh. Yep. But when you think about it, the baby boomer generation, they're still 5 years out from even needing assistance in care. So we've got a 25-year run ahead of us. And that is the largest generation. We all know 76 million people coming into this market. We're currently 1.3 million beds short. Yeah. This is massive. Like there is so much opportunity. It doesn't matter whether you want to do assisted living or not. It's just anything that touches the boomers. They've been driving our economy for the last 70 years and they're gonna for the next 20. So follow them,
Yeah. So, it's an interesting investment vehicle that I've even thought about for myself, but obviously being in California, I started looking at it and then hearing the horror stories. But if you're in other better markets whether it's Phoenix, Arizona, where you have a lot of retarees, or even the desert communities and stuff, it may make more sense.
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to, generally looking at it from an investment side, whether I'm raising capital into it,
Yeah.
or creatively financing or creatively structuring the deal to where you may or may not own the real estate, but you own the business. It's another avenue.
Yeah.
Um,
The good thing to know is you can live where you want and invest where it makes sense, right? 31% of care homeowners do not live in the same state or same area where their home is. And we highly suggest that for people who say, I just can't even figure out how I can make this work, and it's like, then don't do it there. Like figure out another market, because there is opportunity everywhere. And if you grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, you're not moving because you turn 95. You're staying there. Like that's where you live, where where you've been. So there are people who are going to age in place and they're never going to come to the Arizonas, the Floridas, the, warm weather. They're going to stay where they are. So that is an important thing for us to know. You can't do this anywhere. It's just where you like it.
How many of these have you been able to put together for yourself? And like, do you have a little portfolio, I'm guessing?
Yeah, so I personally own and operate 3 here in the Phoenix Scottsdale market. And then we invest in about 50 across the country, all different markets, because we've been
invest in as a limited partner, or
as in some of them it's equity. I have a piece of the deal. Some of them I'm angel investor. Some of them it's, it's a syndication and I'm one of those, in it. They're all different deals because we have trained people how to do this. So then of course, a lot of the deals come back and they say, hey, would you want to invest? And if it's a good deal and I know they know what they're doing because I trained them, then it's hard to say no.
Very interesting. Yeah, because that's what has happened in the multifamily space with Multifamily Schooled, which is our community that really honestly happened organically a couple years ago, where I had a lot of people approaching me saying, hey, we see all the apartments you're buying. Like, can you teach this stuff? And at first I was like, I don't know if I have the time. Like, I don't know. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's just put some courses up online people can take at their own pace. So we started with that. And people loved them because they were able to just take them and they said, hey, this stuff, you explain complex things in a layman's terms way. We love that. Then they said, hey, like, do you coach? Do you mentor? And I was like, I don't have the time to one-on-one mentor. There's no way. But then I said, interesting. I said, I know we could do a one-on-one and we have a price for that. We'll secretly tell people about that. But I said, what if we could create a community? Well-trained investors who were helping become successful, get into their first or their second or their third 10 to 30 unit apartment deal. Okay. And then I know by nature, they're going to want to go for a bigger one. So then they're going to need partnerships and more collaboration for that, which means they're going to need us. Which means now our portfolio can grow alongside theirs. Now it's like an indirect way of creating a bunch of deals across the country that we would otherwise never see. And we're helping them get to where they want to go, right? So their dreams are being met, which is a beautiful thing because they have aligned core values. And then along the way, we're trying to get to 10,000 units and $1 billion in real estate. Well, you can't do that alone. And I can't even see enough deals if I tried. But inside the community, you can. So that's where the Multifamily School came about. Is we're like, dude, what if we could create a community similar to what you're doing, where you're training people and you're getting them the success, so they're winning. And by nature, it's creating more deals and opportunities, not just for them, but for you too.
It's
and then how your portfolio gets to go. That's a win-win. In my book, that is a core value alignment of a win-win. So
I love it. It's a beautiful thing. And I think that being able to share, with other people what you've done to become financially free and how this has changed your life, people naturally want to say, how can I work with you? I want to learn more. So I love that you've been able to provide that for your group. That's amazing.
So now flipping back to your industry, I'm super interested in just learning, generally speaking, what the returns would look like for this type of stuff. Like, is it worth the investment and effort, right? From an annualized return basis, like what does that look like? Because I know everything's run mom and pop, and that's nice, but we do need to run business operations and provide great service at the same time.
Right. That's really what we focus on. We say like, hey, if you're all money, 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 this is not for you. And if you're all heart, 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 this is not for you. It has to be that equal balance of do good and do well, because if it's only about like the money and the returns and the this and the that, you will fail, because that's not what this is about. It has to be so much more than that, and a real calling to, even though you're not in the home, you still have to have that calling to serve seniors and know that they, deserve better care and care about it, because your staff isn't coming from a business background. They're coming from a caregiving background. So you got to speak their language and also get what you need and want out of it. So it does have to be kind of that in between right there. But yeah, it just really ranges depending on location, where, how you're doing it, who's investing.
Can you even give me is it 15% a year? Is it 20% a year?
I've seen deals that are literally, people are getting 68% ROI. I've seen deals that are 24% ROI. It's such a range. Every deal is just, for real, so different.
Is Arizona a good market, and is there more room for it?
You know what? In Arizona, in this county I'm sitting in right now, there are 3,000 group homes in this one county. So there are.
Let me get this straight. You said there's 4,000 in the entire state of California?
Mm-hmm.
You're saying in the county that you're in, Maricopa?
Yep.
Okay. 3,000 homes just in Maricopa County?
That are assisted living homes. Yep.
So you're talking 3,000 times 10 people. So you're talking 30,000 people?
Some of them are 5 beds, because you're limited to 5 unless you add fire suppression, and then you can have 10. So some are 5 beds, some are 10. So we could do it divided by 7 or times 7.
What's considered fire suppression? Like sprinklers?
Sprinklers.
You have to, so you have to have sprinklers. Gotcha.
Yep. Even if you don't, I highly suggest that you do put them in, because if later they say, hey, now you need it, wait, you already have them. Plus it's safety for the seniors. So yes.
These are probably newer homes for most of those, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's preferred, if you can add that in. So in general, this Arizona is it's very common to have these. One of my care homes is on a residential road that has 20 homes on the road, and 8 of the 20 homes are care homes. Like, that is how, and we're not even saturated yet, because that home is full with a waiting list. So, but in 20 years, in 15 years, will we be? Yeah. I don't think that home will be the best location in 15 years. So when people come to Phoenix to our training and they say, oh, it's so easy, I just want to invest here, I'm like, no, go. And not because I don't want the competition. I don't care. I'm full. I'm saying you will have more longevity when you go jump through the hoops in the Northeast, in the Midwest, in the Illinois and Indiana's and Ohio's, where there's just less of these. And there are wealthy, affluent seniors who need housing, and they're not going to come move out here. So do it in those markets where maybe it's harder to get it up and running at first, but it will be so much easier in the long run, because you are going to be one of one.
Yeah. Makes sense. Huh. Interesting. Yeah. And then I would just look at migration patterns. I mean, that's the first thing I'm going to do.
Yeah. I mean, we show those charts and everyone's coming in and down. So
if anybody, honestly, if anybody needs data on website and demographic, I mean, it's the craziest thing, because we're doing it for multifamily now, is embedding all the AI.
Yeah.
So like for all of our students, because they're like, well, what do you think is the best places to invest? And I said, well, here's the states I would, blah, blah, blah. But I said, let's run an exercise. We literally did it yesterday on our call. And I said, I went straight to our little friend at ChatGPT. And I said, we have a specialized prompter that we've created, and we'll go into the prompt and you can ask specific questions, and they're already preset. Yeah. So you literally push the little button and it runs everything. It says, well, based on this, and this, you should invest here. And if you're over here, you should invest here. And it gives you all the data, like population growth, job growth, median household income, and like breaks it all down. I'm like, holy crap. I said, before you'd have to go search websites for hours to get this down. And I said, now you have your little friend over here that as long as you prompt it correctly, I guarantee you could do the exact same thing in your industry and go set up a prompt correctly in ChatGPT to run enormous amounts of data for you to figure out where to invest, where the population patterns are going for seniors and blah, 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 blah. And it would identify the states, cities, counties, and towns to do it, because it's going to aggregate all the data that's available in your industry specifically. We're just at the tipping point. People are like, they're like, well, I don't understand this AI thing. I said, do you have kids? And they're like, yeah. I said, you better get your kids on it like yesterday. I said, they will absorb this thing faster than you can imagine. My kids are on it. They're coding. and they're learning AI and all this stuff, because I'm like, that's the name of the game moving forward for the next 10 plus years. Because I said, if you want to give yourself a perspective of where we're at, we are in the dial-up of AOL. If you remember, we had AOL and then, right? You remember that? That's where we're at with AI.
Yeah.
It's in, if you could go back to the dial-up and say, ooh, I know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
That's where we're at. And it's going to get wild. I mean, it is, we're just in the very beginning stages. I mean, you're going to have robots running your houses within 10 years.
We just did a video on that. Everyone was asking me, hey, what tech are you seeing? You know, what's coming out? And I'm like, there's amazing tech that's like wearable, trackable tech that geofences, you know, and tells you where the seniors are in the home, if their heart rate's dropping, if they're getting a UTI, if they fall, it times how long it takes, you know, a caregiver to come serve them. So there's so many amazing things like that. But then I'm like, also guys, robot caregivers, like this is
your Oculus or whatever the Tesla robot is or whatever it is now, and all the other ones coming in, I guarantee you within 10 years from this date, you will not have live people caregiving your seniors in those houses.
Which is as the owner, on one hand, it's like, it's going to be very interesting, because will you have this generation of people who say, I won't go into a home with robot caregivers? Okay, great. Then you're going to have to pay more, right? But also those who are willing to do that, first of all, it's going to make the care home owner a lot more money then in that case, right? Because now my staffing, my number one expense goes down. The drama of if something happened goes down, because you're going to sue a robot because something didn't it's really interesting. And it also solves in our industry the largest crisis, which is we do not have enough staff. It's the number one most in-demand job in our country right now is home health aides or CNAs. There is not enough. And most of them are immigrants from other countries. And with, you know, I don't care how everyone feels politically. This isn't a statement about that. But like with our current, you know, situation, we're having a lot of those caregivers have to leave our country. And that is really not helping seniors, and the lack of beds. And now it's the lack of staff, and we are short beds. So it's like supply is shrinking by the day and demand is shooting up. To me, it's like a no-brainer. It's just like AI. It's like we're seeing what's ahead. I'm seeing what's ahead with senior housing, saying I would be an idiot if I didn't go all in on this, because it's a crystal ball. Like we know what's coming.
Yeah, and you can especially with the robots and stuff, of course there's an adoption period, right? Yes. And there's like, I will never do that. Trust me, eventually we're not gonna have a choice, but I get it. Well, this has been incredible. I hope people get a lot out of this. I mean, because we've talked about everything from starting one, getting into one, the EBITDA, general ranges of 68% to 24%. You did give me some ranges. Thank you.
It's all over the place. Sorry.
It's all over the map. It's because of how the industry is mapped and put together. How can people find you? How can they learn about you and your community and how you're helping people get into this space?
We're on all forms of social media at RAL Academy. So you can follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, or reach out to us at ral101.com. I've got free books, free webinars, and you can schedule a call with me or the team right there.
Beautiful. And if you're watching this on like YouTube or anything like that, you can click the links below and it'll have direct access to them.
Amazing.
Well, all right. Well, we're signing off. This went fast. This was amazing. That way I can give you some time in between now and your next appointments. But thank you for spending a little bit of time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Cool. And now I'm going to have to come. I mean, I'm out to Phoenix a decent amount. But this is probably a space I need to look into a little closer now. And probably not in Cali, right?
You can, but
Vegas, and definitely looking for residency in Nevada for tax purposes.
There you go.
Phoenix is clearly a good market for this type of stuff. It'd be interesting to look into it. So I may be reaching out to you.
Sounds good. We'll stay in touch.
All right, buddy. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.